kids sold for sex, and it's happening right here in the Bay Area.
It's like branding cattle. It's an ownership mark.
Bright futures turning brutal.
I really just wish that things would have been different, or that I was stronger.
You wake up at 5 a.m. and I could be sold anywhere from 25 to 40 times a day.
Our I-Team's 9-month-long investigation is bringing this hidden problem into the light. How investigators are holding traffickers accountable. To the valuable information you need to know to protect your children.
People are so busy that they go about their life and they don't always look at clues or look at signs that something could be wrong.
Plus the heroes in our community stepping up to help victims heal.
It hits me, as a mother.
Thank you for joining us for this special report, Kids Sold for Sex. I'm Wendy Ryan. The trafficking of children is an issue you may think of as a crime overseas, but it's happening to our children who call the Bay Area home. The coronavirus has changed so much about our day-to-day lives, but law enforcement experts tell us child sex trafficking remains a problem. And it becomes even more of a concern when big events come to town, like the Super Bowl, which Tampa is hosting in 2021. And as of June of 2020, the big game is still on. And that's why our ABC Action News I-Team spent 9 months investigating this problem. Over the next half hour, you'll hear from people on the front lines of the child sex trafficking fight. They'll tell you what makes these cases so tough to prosecute and the specific signs every parent should know about. But first, this is the phone number you need to program into your phone. If you suspect a child is in danger, call the Florida Abuse Hotline at 1-800-96-ABUSE. That number is toll-free and will anonymously connect you to someone who can help if you suspect a child in your life is being exploited. Now let's bring in our Kylie McGivern. And Kylie, you're joining us from the field since we're recording this during the coronavirus pandemic. And we want to maintain social distancing guidelines. But I know you found out the pandemic has also made experts very worried about vulnerable children out there.
Yes, and that's because these kids, they're not coming into contact with teachers, neighbors, coaches, the way that they typically would. So a lot of that time is being shifted online, which can create some of those dangers. 70% of sex trafficking victims, that activity actually starts online. So that's what we're looking at.
So Kylie, is anything being done to reach out to these kids during this time?
Yes, so one of the other factors of this is the trainings that Selah Freedom does. That's a nonprofit organization that works with survivors. They typically are in the classrooms, but now that training is also going online. So we're talking about elementary, middle, high school students and their parents looking for the warning signs to spot.
All right, thank you, Kylie. I'll be continuing my conversation with Kylie throughout this special report. And a little later, we'll show you how the fight against sex trafficking is focusing on social media. But first, one disturbing component of trafficking, the permanent marks that some victims carry long after they're rescued. Corporal Alan Wilkett leads Pasco County's Human Trafficking Task Force. He says tattoos like these can sometimes be signs someone is being trafficked. For example, the number 16 stands for the letter P, and that can mean that person is being pimped. In some cases, victims are even scanned like groceries. That's the case for one young woman who Wilkett says he met in a local safe house.
These barcodes are written in such a way by these tattoos and tattoo artists that if you scan that with your smartphone, it'll tell you she's $25 or she's $30. And her response to that was, that's what I'm worth. I am worth $30.
We also spoke with Natasha Nascimento from Redefining Refuge. That's a local nonprofit group that works with child sex trafficking victims. She says she's seen this as well.
The youngest child I've seen, I believe she's probably somewhere around 11 years old. She had dollar signs, like the actual dollar sign, tattooed onto both her eyelids. Those were professionally done. And think about that. Children in a first world country in the United States of America, that's what's happening. And it's happening today.
And Kylie, not only are children being branded, but they're being charged with prostitution, right?
Right. Even though Florida passed a law years ago to stop those arrests and instead work on helping those victims.
I remember remember the sounds, the lights, especially on the Ybor Strip driving through.
Memories of bright lights illuminating Angelia Valenti's dark past.
You wake up at 5 a.m. and I could be sold anywhere from 25 to 40 times a day.
When was the first time that you were sold for sex?
16 was the earliest I remember.
Angelia says she was sexually abused by family members starting at 3 years old, running away from home at 12, and meeting an older man on the streets at 13.
I thought he was the man of my dreams. I thought he was going to love me and support me.
Instead, he sold her for sex.
And I just remember walking until my feet bled. And every once in a while I would look up to the clear sky and see the stars. Every once in a while I'd see a shooting star. And I would revert back to that little girl that would just make my wish of a better life.
There are no hard numbers on how many children have been sold for sex, but in 2018, the FBI reported 260 kids across the country arrested for prostitution. The I-Team also uncovered more than 300 children here in Florida have been charged with prostitution in the last decade.
So you're going to arrest a child for being sexually abused? Come on, it doesn't make any sense.
The I-Team went out with Nascimento on a rainy day, reminding her of a mantra she said a pimp made his girls recite.
Come rain or shine or snow, you're going to work.
She showed us how she looks for missing children or kids in need.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, there's 2 young girls that just walked out.
A backside of a Tampa hotel on a Monday afternoon.
And there's a whole bunch of girls in there.
Enough for Nascimento to call police.
Yes, ma'am, I wanted to file a report. They don't even look to be 18 years old. And one did walk out of the room with some money in her hand, so I'm not sure what's going on in there. I'm very concerned for their safety, and okay, great, thank you. Bye-bye.
The I-Team obtained a copy of the police report that says an officer went out to the hotel, but not until the next day. The officer reported the person renting the room at that time did not match any of the physical descriptions provided by Nascimento.
The children that we serve, they don't stay in one place for very long. So again, who's to say it's not a different group of people?
In recent years, Florida has focused on helping rather than punishing children bought for sex. But in 20 states across the country, minors can still be charged with prostitution. Florida passed a law in 2016 prohibiting the arrest of kids for prostitution. But the I-Team found not everyone is following that law. In May 2019, the Lake Wales Police Department filed criminal charges against 2 middle schoolers for soliciting for prostitution.
We had to act on something like this.
Lieutenant David Black stands by his department's actions.
In this situation, it was very much the right thing to do.
A police report reveals a school resource officer found the girl and boy behind a building. The report says the boy gave the girl $5 to perform a sex act.
Do you think it's okay to arrest children for prostitution?
I think it has to be a case-on-case basis.
I mean, with all due respect, are you aware that in Florida, you are not supposed to arrest children for prostitution?
When you brought that to my attention, I have to dig into that a little bit.
Angelia says she was finally rescued a few years ago during a police sting.
It's been a long journey.
She now works as an advocate, helping other trafficking victims.
Do you still ever look up at the sky?
With my children quite often. I know that my wish came true.
We reached out to prosecutors about the charges against those Lake Wales kids, but they declined to comment, saying they cannot discuss a case involving minors. Wendy?
Kylie, thank you. The victims of trafficking can range in age and even gender. The I-Team uncovered a haunting case where suspected child sex traffickers lured 2 teenage boys to a St. Pete trailer park with video games, online apps, and the promise of a puppy. I-Team investigator Adam Walser takes us inside this case, and a warning, many of the details here are disturbing, but we think they're important to share because this underscores the valuable information you need to know to protect your own kids.
That's Mark, and that's Andy. They put on a good front.
Mary Homerding never suspected her neighbors were child sex traffickers.
They were always polite. They even joked around.
Because they would ride by in the golf cart and wave.
Nobody in this quiet 55 and older mobile home park suspected a group of 6 men had been keeping 2 teen boys in this trailer starting in 2017.
They were really nice, you know, that's what the shocking part is.
Neighbors said they were surprised the men got away with it for so long because the boys were being held in that blue trailer just a few feet away from the neighborhood trash containers, which many of the residents of this 600-unit complex used multiple times a week.
I've never seen the kids.
Yeah, as many times I went to the garbage can because they live right across from the garbage can. I never heard anything, never seen anything out of order.
Police say the men in the trailer and another woman in north central Florida used video games and online apps like Omegle, Roblox, and Discord to find and communicate with their victims.
The majority of people playing games are boys. And that's how our boys are lured in.
A 2016 study funded by the U.S. Department of Justice estimates 36% of child sex trafficking victims are boys. The first victim was a 16-year-old boy from Marion County.
The teenage victim in this case was lured away from his family with promises of a better life. Instead, he was moved into a filthy trailer and used as a sex slave for nearly a year.
The boy first met these 2 men, Mark Dennis and Andrew Clements, at their 2017 wedding. Police say he was brought to the wedding by a family friend, Eleanor McGlamory, who is charged with conspiracy in the case. Dennis and Clements immediately started texting the boy using Discord and picked him up at his home 140 miles away 3 weeks later. Police say they disabled his cell phone so he couldn't be tracked, then gave him a new name, birthday, and backstory.
And the kid was polite. He seemed happy.
Homerding says she only saw the boy once, riding a golf cart with Clements.
He introduced him as his adopted son, and the boy agreed.
Did you think it was odd that you didn't see him for months and months after that?
Well, I figured it didn't work out.
People are so busy that they go about their life and they don't always look at clues or look at signs that something could be wrong.
Police say Dennis, Clements, their roommates Curtis Gruwell and Michael Schwartz, and associates Michael Blasdell and J.R. Gauthier were involved in the trafficking ring. They say 4 of the 6 men repeatedly raped the boy inside the trailer.
Yeah, I asked him if there was anything going on because it seemed like he was really depressed.
Abigail Ackerman met the victim and traffickers at a pagan festival where she says Mark Dennis offered to pay her $2,000 to make the boy a fantasy costume.
They wanted me to make him a blue and white husky suit for his birthday.
And she said the men showered the boy with other gifts.
Buying expensive things like game consoles, a full-blooded husky puppy that they bought him.
Well, that's part of the grooming process, and that's part of, even though there might not be physical chains around a victim, around a person, they have mental and emotional chains around a person.
Police say they found whips, leather masks, and bondage tools inside the trailer. According to police reports, Mark Dennis called himself Grand Master and referred to the others as his pups, who made up what he referred to as his family circle.
And we all have this deep-rooted sense that we want to have family.
But police recovered text messages showing the boy was unhappy. "I'm stressed to high hell. I don't want sex all the time," the boy said nearly a year into captivity. Which is such a shame when such a tight group of people who love you have come into your life, one of his abusers replied. Then in 2018, they met a new victim online, a 17-year-old Louisiana boy they convinced to come live with them. Eleanor McGlamory and Curtis Grewell drove about 10 hours to pick the boy up in the woods near his rural Louisiana home in the dead of night, court records show. 3 days later, Louisiana police found the boy's online messages and rescued both boys from the trailer. Now all 6 men are facing charges of conspiracy to commit human trafficking.
It's very, very important that we teach our children not to give out personal information.
Experts say parents should monitor their kids' online activity, especially messages with any strangers.
They have a computer in their hands that they're opened up to anything and everything in the entire world.
Here in Pinellas County, as of June 2020, the people charged with trafficking these boys were still behind bars awaiting trial. Those trials delayed because of the pandemic. 3 of the defendants have entered into plea deals in exchange for their upcoming testimony. Wendy?
When it comes to holding suspects accountable, law enforcement experts tell us it's not always easy. The I-Team was the only camera inside a Hernando County courtroom in June of 2019 as 9 men were charged with human trafficking for paying to sexually assault a teenage girl. They included a restaurant owner, a fire rescue lieutenant, even a retired postal inspector. The suspects ranging in age from their 70s to their early 20s. And as of June of 2020, one man is serving 3 years probation for communication to facilitate human trafficking. And the cases against the others continue. Hernando County Sheriff Al Ninhai says the investigation took 2 years and started with a tip that a girl in her mid-teens was being advertised for sex online.
She was not attending school. She should have been doing things like learning to drive, maybe attending school dances, or thinking about going to college.
The I-Team sat down with retired Tampa Police Corporal Mike Victor. He told us it can take years to build a case against a sex trafficker. We also drove Tampa streets day and night as he showed us where he's recovered child victims. And he explained the time it takes to build trust with those victims.
This could take 2 to 3 years to develop the probable cause to arrest a pimp. I mean, it has.
Victor also telling us about his successes. That includes one case involving a man who he called one of the most violent pimps he'd ever seen. But that man was not the only person put in handcuffs. I-Team investigator Jackie Calloway traveled to South Carolina to meet a woman who was brutalized, sold for sex, and later ended up as a convicted sex trafficker.
Once upon a time, Tajana Joy dreamed of a bright future.
I thought I was either going to go and sing at Disney.
In 2008, the then 18-year-old won a High Achievers Award. But tragedy struck twice before Tajana graduated high school near Orlando.
This is my mom.
Her mother?
Oh, this is my baby brother, Emmanuel.
And baby brother died within 6 months of each other.
Did you ever see yourself taking the path that you took?
No, not at all. It was hard. It was really, really hard.
At 19, Tajana started dancing at an Orlando strip club to provide for her and her 3 younger sisters. That's where she met Waylon Rodriguez. At first, she says Rodriguez lavished her with attention to gain her love and trust.
You get cuddled, you get shopping, you get food.
It's a ploy pimps use, known as cupcaking. But soon, he began selling Tajana for sex.
I didn't want to do it. I hated it. I absolutely hated it.
Court records show Rodriguez brutally beat Tajana repeatedly.
He was a very violent guy.
Retired Tampa Police Corporal Mike Victor worked with the FBI on the case against Rodriguez.
This is probably one of the most violent pimp cases that I'd ever seen.
Punched in the face. That was his favorite. I would be punched square in the face.
Tajana showed us burns and scars. This one landed her in the ER.
He took his foot and stomped my head into the marble floor.
Abused, sold for sex, and even branded by her pimp.
Tell me what it stands for.
Get money.
But then Tajana crossed the line from trafficking victim to child sex trafficker.
When you hear the word Tajana Joy and convicted child sex trafficker in the same sentence,
It breaks my heart.
Tajana was still being sold for sex, but Rodriguez gave her a new role, known as the bottom.
I'm bottom. You're supposed to listen to me when you're not having to listen to daddy.
The pimp himself is the person in charge of the organization, and the bottom is the person second in command. They're the ones who take the money or train the prostitute on what to do or the victim on what to do.
as a bottom, did you ever slap these girls?
Yeah.
How many times would you estimate that you slapped a teenage girl?
Maybe 10, 15.
Come on, let me see you. We obtained home videos used as evidence in the FBI's case against Rodriguez.
It took her 3 seconds to think about what you were saying. You got it. Say no more. Now you snatch her phone out her hand.
Federal agents say the recordings show Rodriguez training Tajana and underage girls how to talk to and close the sale with potential Johns.
You put your number in there, call your phone from it, so therefore you got her number, hand it back to her until I'ma holler at you.
One of the girls being trained was just 17.
My job was to show her how to do the dates, was to make her more comfortable with them.
And she was a virgin.
What's your biggest regret regarding her?
That I didn't make her stay gone. I feel like I could have.
Tajana finally ran away after getting pregnant.
He repeatedly hit me in my stomach and in my face.
While you were pregnant?
Yeah.
Rodriguez, Tajana, and another bottom, Priya Gunn, were convicted in 2012. Rodriguez is serving a life sentence for 5 counts of child sex trafficking. Tajana and Priya Gunn both pled guilty to conspiracy to engage in sex trafficking of a minor.
I just wanted to make things right.
And she must register as a sex offender. Tajana now lives in rural South Carolina, which is where we met.
Tajana. Yeah. Jackie, really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
It's also where she's raising her 3 children.
You want to taste it?
Now, 30 years old, Tajana is sharing her story to warn other young girls who may be vulnerable to traffickers.
I know that those girls had the same problems I had. And it's not fair for someone to be able to take advantage of it. It's not fair at all.
She says her faith is helping her to make peace with the past.
I've had to forgive myself for those things.
In South Carolina, I'm Jackie Calloway.
So now that you have a better understanding about child sex trafficking and its impact in our community, what's being done to stop it? Our I-Team found the war against child sex trafficking is going high-tech. Stephanie Costolo of the U.S. Institute Against Human Trafficking in Tampa says the nonprofit group is blasting out ads via Facebook to more than 100,000 potential local sex buyers each month.
A typical sex buyer in America is a white, middle-aged man who earns medium to upper income and is likely a professional.
The group says it's using thousands of past arrests to target specific profiles and direct them to help pages. USF St. Pete is also joining the fight. In May of 2020, the school received a new grant devoted to studying human trafficking. The researchers say the Bay Area is considered a hotspot for child sex trafficking due to a high number of vulnerable kids and an influx of buyers. The researchers want to look into if there are different profiles related to child sex traffickers and if they can determine how they operate. That way they can have a better sense of how to prevent this in our community. Experts say there are signs a child is being trafficked. They include unexplained school absences, bruises, or other physical trauma, and a sudden change in their clothing. We're talking about more expensive items they might not normally be able to afford. Also, you should be aware if they have a much older boyfriend or girlfriend, or start making references to sexual situations that are very unusual for a child of their age. One of the reasons we've decided to do this series on child sex trafficking now, experts say events like the Super Bowl create opportunities for sex traffickers and buyers. Tampa will have the big game in 2021. And that's why representatives from Homeland Security Investigations Tampa office went down to Miami to see the preparations there.
The importation of victims for human trafficking is going to be significant for Miami, as it will in Tampa, and I think we're going to be able to learn lessons. What works from an operational perspective, what works from an investigative perspective, and most importantly, what works from a victim rescue perspective.
The FBI announced it rescued 4 children involved in sex trafficking in the lead up to the Super Bowl in Miami. And during the 2019 Super Bowl in Atlanta, an FBI sting led to the arrest of more than 160 people with ties to human trafficking and the rescue of 9 kids. Agents tell us those kinds of operations will continue to be a major focus for federal agents here ahead of the Super Bowl in Tampa. So what will you see and notice heading into the big game? Well, local transportation groups will be trying to spread the word about trafficking. The Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority is training its drivers to recognize when passengers may be victims of child sex trafficking. Similarly, the U.S. Transportation Department recently freed up more than $5 million in grant money. Some of that will go to HEART to create more public awareness about this issue ahead of the Super Bowl. And that federal transportation money is being dispersed all around the country to help train workers at airports, bus depots, and other transit hubs. Earlier, we showed you the unforgettable images of the marks many trafficking survivors carry on their bodies long after they've been rescued. Now, local tattoo shops are stepping up to help survivors move forward. And let's bring in Kylie one more time. Kylie?
After our investigation, tattoo shop owners from Bradenton to Orlando reached out offering their services to help cover up these reminders of abuse. We sat down with a couple in Citrus County who felt a personal connection to this story.
It hits me, as a mother.
Alicia and Danny Belden own Twisted Ink in Inverness and saw the I-Team's report on sex trafficking victims in Tampa Bay tattooed with symbols and even barcodes.
It's disgusting. It's not right, and we just want to fix it in any way possible.
It hits home a little bit. Like I was sexually abused when I was younger, so it has a little bit of a meaning to me. I kept quiet for about 15 years because I didn't know how to handle it. I was embarrassed. I'm doing all my outlines.
Through his work as a tattoo artist,
this is kind of what calms me down.
Danny now helps others transform trauma into triumph.
It's going to take both of us to get through this.
Covering up the names of abusers, gang tattoos, hate symbols.
And it's helping people move out of where they used to be in their lives and start over.
Just recently, Twisted Ink was named part of Survivor Inc.'s network, a national nonprofit that helps human trafficking victims remove brandings.
They actually cover the cost of the tattoo, and the artist donates their time.
For Danny,
I'll donate my time all day long.
His scars aren't visible.
Every day I learn something new.
But the healing is.
Me being able to face what I've been through has helped me move forward and become successful in my life, and I want to offer that to somebody else that's going through the same trauma.
We connected other tattoo shops who reached out with local nonprofits helping survivors.
Kylie, thank you. And again, if you're concerned about a child in your life, call the Florida Abuse Hotline. That number is 1-800-96-ABUSE. The line is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can see all of the reporting we've done on this special section of our website at abcactionnews.com/trafficking. Plus, watch all of our investigations on our free streaming apps on Roku, Fire TV, and Apple TV. And our I-Team always welcomes tips, whether they're related to this issue or not. So please contact us. The information is on your screen so we can take action for you. And on behalf of our ABC Action News I-Team, thank you for joining us for this special report.